You may be familiar with phobias. Maybe you even feel like you have a phobia. Well, that's the topic for today's episode. I'm going to get into what phobias are and what causes them. And I'm going to discuss this from the mainstream view of what phobias are, what causes them, and how professionals go about treating them. But I'm also going to discuss it from the standpoint of law of attraction, because I have a little bit of a different view on phobias than many psychologists or mental health professionals. And so I want to offer you a different way to look at it and maybe expand your understanding of phobias from the standpoint of law of attraction in order to increase awareness and also to offer an alternative way of addressing it if it's something that you are relating to in your personal life. If you feel like you have a phobia, then I'm going to offer you the opportunity to look at it in a different way and maybe go about finding a different way to address it so that it doesn't have such a strong hold on you in this lifetime. So I'm going to define what phobias are and what causes them. And then we're going to kind of talk about some specific ones. I really want to focus more on a particular area of phobias for this discussion. And that's because I have some personal experience here. And I want to offer that to you. Specifically, I want to talk about entomophobia, which is a fear of insects. And the reason I want to focus on that is because I have some personal experience and I had some inspiration which led me to want to talk about that with you specifically. But I am going to throw in just some broader, more general understanding of phobias and what the symptoms are and the treatments, and then offer you my individual perspective based on my own experience, based on my professional experience, and based on my spiritual understanding of the law of attraction. So welcome to the episode on phobias.
I'm Dr. Williams, and this is my podcast. I have 2 graduate degrees in psychology, am a licensed mental health counselor, and an expert in the area of spirituality. I am devoted to living my best life and am sharing it with all of you. I'm bringing my expertise, education, and life experiences to you through this podcast. Everyone deserves to enjoy life, and that is what I'm here to talk about. Depression, anxiety, grief, you name it, we all go through it at one time or another. I believe there's a better way to come at these things than mainstream mental health care offers, and I'm here to offer you my perspective and dig into discovering how you can feel good no matter what life throws at you. It is my intention to contribute goodness to this world, and the content herein is how I do that. But one disclaimer before we dive in: should you decide to apply the information offered here, be prepared for improvements in your life. You may even live happily ever after, and you'll only have yourself to thank. This is Feel Good Now, the Dr. Williams podcast.
What is a phobia? Well, a phobia is defined as a persistent, excessive, kind of unrealistic fear of something. A lot of times you'll hear it explained as an irrational fear. And a phobia is more than just a natural kind of normal fear response, which is why professionals have categorized it in an excessive way to be a bigger problem than regular fear. Now, if you've heard me talk about diagnosing in the past in other episodes, then you know I'm not a fan of it, because once you diagnose somebody or label them with something, then it gives it a lot of power. Even though a lot of people find some relief when they've been diagnosed with something, that relief comes from that feeling of validation. Of like, yes, I've been experiencing this, and this, and now I have something that is well known and studied to define what I've been going through, and it can feel like a relief. It offers people a starting point to understanding what it is they're going through, connecting with other people who are going through similar things, and how to go about treating it and making it so it is not so life-changing in a really negative way. And that's what phobias are. Phobias are debilitating fears. Phobias suggest a difficulty in living. So there's specific phobias, and depending on what the object of fear is, that person will usually do everything in their power to avoid that stimulus so that they don't have the fear response. I think that once we have labeled somebody with that diagnosis, though it may feel validating and offer some relief in that way, I think it's actually contributing to the problem, because now there's something to adhere to, right? There's something somewhat normalized because other people experience similar things and it's been studied, and now we have this bucket of information to dive into and apply it to us personally. And there's power in that. There's power in defining yourself by a disorder or by a diagnosis. And that happens because once you've been diagnosed, that's when you use that information or that title to explain a part of yourself to other people. And it makes it a part of who you are. Well, since we know that law of attraction brings you what you think and you believe in and you feel, then that means that you are promoting more of this diagnosis and everything that comes with it in your life when you are stating that it is a part of who you are. And that's why I don't like it. That's why I think it's unhelpful and something that I would like to see change in the mental health field. Saying something like, let's just use arachnophobia as an example. That's something I'm going to touch on in the episode. Now, if you are telling people, well, I have arachnophobia, or I am an arachnophobe, that is a powerful thing to say. That is you expressing who you are in relation to spiders, right? Because arachnophobia is a fear of spiders. Now, not only are you committing to that more by making those kind of statements, that you accept this diagnosis and this label as part of who you are, by you expressing it outwardly to other people, you are now putting yourself in a position to where they are investing in it about you in addition to your own beliefs. So if other people also believe in phobias and the information that comes with it and what it does in a person's life, they are now looking for that while watching you live your life. So if you're hanging out with somebody who knows you have that diagnosis, they see a spider, they are going to start expecting a fear response from you because they know that about you. Now that is just contributing to the issue. So that's my spiel on why I don't like diagnosing. And it creates kind of this issue for me because I'm in this field. I'm in the field of psychology and I'm in the field of mental health, and we deal with diagnoses. That's what we do. We diagnose people and we offer the labels to them, and then we go about helping them treat it. Well, that's not something that I am on board with. And it's probably a big part of why I haven't been practicing, because I don't want to offer anybody anything that is unhelpful. Okay, so there's that. So basically, a phobia is categorized as an anxiety disorder. It falls under that category, and there's lots of phobias. Actually, anytime you have a fear of a particular thing, a new label comes about in order to describe it. There is a long list of phobias. But each of them is basically an irrational fear of whatever the focus is, whatever that object is that the fear response is associated with. You heard me mention arachnophobia. But the phobia I really want to focus on the most in this episode is called entomophobia. And entomophobia is a fear of insects. Now, spiders are not technically insects, so they don't really fall into the category of entomophobia. Arachnophobia is kind of its own little category, but there are a lot of specific phobias associated with specific insects. And I'm going to lump arachnophobia and the discussion of spiders into this conversation because I have some personal experience with entomophobia, and it includes spiders. So I know that they're different, but I am going to put them together. But there are a lot of other specific phobias about specific insects. And I'm not going to list off all the names. There's a lot of really wild names to describe specific phobias for specific insects. But there's phobias of bees and flies and ants and roaches specifically, and worms and wasps and all sorts of things. When I did some research about phobias to kind of prepare myself for this conversation with you, I wanted to know what the mainstream agreement is as to what causes them. And I'm going to offer that to you, and I'm going to kind of tell you what I think about that. The first thing that was listed as a cause of entomophobia, so something that creates this fear of insects, would be a past traumatic experience. And I don't mean to laugh, but I just got a visual of my sister when she was younger, and I'll tell you that story. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It makes sense that if you've had some kind of traumatic experience between you and an insect, that could develop into a fear of that insect, or a fear generalized to all insects based on what you experienced. So I understand that one. That one makes sense to me. Though I understand it from a deeper level also, because it is not just the experience itself which develops into a phobia. It comes with reactions and beliefs, and then practiced beliefs. Because if you were to, say, get stung by a bee, and obviously that does not feel good, it's not something you enjoyed, it's not something you want to do again. But it won't necessarily create a phobia unless you believe it's going to happen every time you interact with a bee. If you were late in life when you got stung by a bee for the very first time, what are the chances that that would develop into a phobia? If we think about it, there's less of a chance because you have all of that life experience leading up to that one traumatic event where you have interacted with bees and never been stung. So that suggests that if something happens during childhood or just more earlier on in life, there's more of a risk that this reaction and the beliefs associated with this experience are going to turn into an unhelpful and irrational fear related to the stimulus or to the insect, which is what we're talking about. Another one of the suggested causes I thought was really interesting, and it was talking about environmental irritations. And I was not familiar with this one. It was talking about how if somebody has persistent skin irritation, so like scratching, itchy, just irritated skin a lot of the time, which is probably associated with things like pollen or dander, other kind of allergies in your environment. But when people feel their skin crawling, so to speak, they have a tendency to think of bugs. And it could be like microscopic bugs on their skin that they can't see. And they start thinking that they have bugs on themselves all the time. And then when they feel their skin being irritated, it just exacerbates that belief and that fear. That was interesting to me. I don't have any experience with that specifically, but I do find it interesting. I would kind of want to talk to that person and try to understand how they made the jump from the way their skin feels to it being bug related. And I'm thinking that there's probably some kind of experience or exposure to something else which set that belief in motion. So like maybe somebody suggesting it or seeing something on TV, something like that. The other thing that was suggested as a cause of entomophobia is family history. And this one I can relate to. It's talking about how fear can be passed on in your family through generations. It was saying that if you have a close relative or a parent even that has a phobia disorder, that you have more of a chance of having it. Now, it lost me when it started talking about gene mutation. I don't think that phobias have anything to do with your genes. I think that family history makes sense in that you witness it, right? You have exposure to this irrational fear during your life by seeing someone else react to it in that way. And I think that a lot of people take that on because fear can be very contagious. And especially if you're growing up around fear or around somebody that has a strong fear. Now, that I can agree with. That one I'm on board with. And I'm really on board with it because I have witnessed it. 2 of my family members who are close relatives have entomophobia severely. And I haven't talked to them or gotten their permission to tell you guys about this. So I'm not going to say who it is, but it's something that is debilitating for them. The fear is extreme, and you can see the fear response in them. You can see their body change. You can witness the agony that they experience when they are around bugs and even thinking about bugs. Did you know that a phobia is even just thinking about the stimulus result in some kind of physical anxiety or fear response? Now that is powerful stuff, but we know how powerful the mind is. So really, that's not the family history that they were talking about in my research. That's more considered to be modeling. When you take on the fear of somebody else because you're witnessing it. That's modeling behavior. Now, I want to offer a different cause. I want to offer an understanding from a law of attraction perspective. Because a phobia really is just a belief that's not serving the person. That's why it's irrational fear, right? It's not really warranted. And it has a lot of momentum going. This is something that has been practiced and not addressed. There's been little effort put toward turning the belief around to be more helpful, and more effort put toward investing in the belief that the fear is warranted. Because let me tell you, somebody who has a phobia, that is a very real thing for that person. That person is experiencing legitimate fear. Their body responds. I mean, they are getting chills and dizziness and nausea. They sweat. Their heart palpitates. They're trembling. Their stomach is upset. This is a real physical response to a belief that they have. That is experienced in a really real way. But it makes sense because law of attraction brings us what we think about, whether we want it or not. It also responds to your vibration. And the vibration that you're offering when you're in fear is bringing you more fear. So the real cause, and really the only cause of phobias, is disconnection. It's misalignment. And I know that I say that about everything, but it's true. You don't experience fear, definitely not an extreme version, such as in a phobia, if you are in alignment with source energy. You just don't. So when that experience is occurring, that is a big sign that you are low on the emotional guidance scale and you are out of alignment with source energy. It made me think of the Bible story of Daniel in the lion's den. Now, if you're familiar with your Bible stories from Sunday school or whatnot, then you know about Daniel. Now, Daniel was put into a big den full of lions. And obviously, the people that put him in there expected the lions to eat him. But the lions did not eat him. And the moral of the story, or the message that it's offering, is because Daniel believed so completely in God that the lions did not touch him. That is the truth of it. The lions were responding to Daniel's vibration. And he was vibrating high because he was in alignment with source energy. Or if you're looking at it from a Bible point of view, he was in alignment with God. And that's what he was offering, and the lions responded to that. Hey guys, I have some big news. I've decided to offer you guys some exciting interaction opportunities. Have you guys been over to the website, drwilliamspodcast.com? If you have, you may have noticed a scheduling calendar that wasn't there before. I am going to be offering some one-on-one sessions. I'm also going to be doing some interviews. So if you think you might be interested in having a one-on-one co-creation or private personal alignment session with me, you can go to the calendar and you can schedule a free 15-minute consult. Or if you want to be a guest on the show, maybe you are an expert in mental health or law of attraction, or you just have some life experience with either of those things and you want to share your story, you can schedule a free 30-minute pre-interview call to be a guest on the show. Because I told you guys, I want you guys to feel like this is your show too. So here is your chance to shine. I am so eager to offer my audience a multifaceted listening experience, rich with your unique perspective on life. We all have something to contribute. Let's hear what you have to say. And now, back to the episode. So I have to tell you now, my personal experience with entomophobia is very similar to the experience that Daniel had in the lion's den. I used to be afraid of insects. It was not to the point of a phobia. It was kind of normal. I think a lot of people have fear of insects. And it was kind of at that level. Like if I saw a spider, I would kill it. Actually, I would just kill lots of bugs. I didn't think twice about it. I didn't want them in my house. When I was going to college, as an undergrad at the University of Hawaii, Hilo, I had to deal with a lot of cockroaches. Big old cockroaches. And I killed them on the regular. And I did not like them. They were gross. And I would open up a drawer and they would be in there with the silverware and they would scurry really fast. And I'd wake up in the morning and they would be on the wall next to my bed. And I would grab my shoe and I would kill it. And it was really bothersome to me. Like, I did not like the roaches. And then something started to change in me. And I can't even pinpoint what stimulated the change. But I got to the point where I started just putting bugs outside. I didn't want to kill them anymore. I think it probably was just that I valued life. And I recognized that these insects have a life. Now, this doesn't apply to cockroaches because This started happening after I came back from Hawaii, but it did start applying to spiders specifically. And then it got to the point where I would not kill a spider. I would always put it outside. I don't care how scary it was. I would catch it in a glass, put a piece of paper under the glass, and take it outside and let it go. And some spiders are really creepy looking, and I would even do it for the super creepy ones because I valued their life. Now, while I was doing this and valuing the life of spiders in my house, I was still killing earwigs because earwigs are icky. Because I don't like earwigs. They're just gross. And they really bothered me. And I was still killing earwigs when my first son was born. We had a really bad year where earwigs were all over our house. And I'd find them like on the wall in my baby's nursery. And I was killing those buggers. Like, I did not want them in the house. We had bombed the house. So putting like insect bombs under the house and fumigating to get rid of them. And since that year, it really hasn't been a problem. But I've even started to value the life of earwigs. And that's saying a lot for me. Like, that's really saying a lot. But spiders have become my friends. And I know that's a big statement to make for a lot of people to hear. But it's true. And stay with me. Don't go yet. I know some of you are like, ew, that's gross. I can't listen to this anymore. But things have changed. And I'm telling you, there is a respect there now. I have a relationship with spiders. I can't even believe I'm saying that. But it's true. The first time I remember communicating with a spider was I was watching... I don't know which festival it was for, but we had a local festival going on and they had a street parade. And I was sitting in a chair watching the parade when I happened to see some movement in my hair. Now, my hair was long, so I looked down and there's a spider in my hair. Now, most people don't want insects in their hair, and I was no different. I did not want this spider in my hair. Like, at this point, I was respecting spiders, but I didn't want them on my body. And I would not touch them with my hands. I was doing the cup thing, or I'd put them on a piece of paper and take them outside. But we were not making physical contact. Well, instead of freaking out, and it probably helped that I was in a really public setting and didn't want to just start jumping up and down and running my hands through my hair trying to get this spider out and then not knowing where it went, I decided to calmly, mentally ask the spider to get out of my hair. So what I did is I grabbed my hair from up above and I kind of held it out away from my body. And lo and behold, you guys, I promise you this happened and it was amazing. The spider dropped itself down with a bit of webbing from my hair, landed on the armrest of the chair I was in, and then climbed down the chair and went on its way. And no one else witnessed this. This was a very personal, intimate moment with me and this spider. And it was a pivotal moment in my life. And since then, spiders and I are friends. My boys get into this with me because we have spider friends. And we found a daddy long-leg spider living in our cupboard, in our pantry, and he lived there for months. We named him Parker, like Spider-Man, Peter Parker. And I would talk to him, and I respected him, and he just lived in our cupboard. We actually have one right now living in our Tupperware cupboard. And I don't know how he's feeding himself, but he's been in there for several weeks. I also have a spider friend right now that is living in my shower. And you guys probably think I have spiders all over my house, but I don't. I just have a couple. And we also had another spider friend that lived in the boys' room for a long time. And they would talk to it and say hi to it, and it lived between the bookcase and the wall. And then one day it was gone. But it never caused any trouble. It was just living its life, and we cohabitated with it. But this cute little spider that's in my shower right now, and I have had lots of shower spider friends. And you guys know my shower time is so special to me, and I don't mind sharing it with my spider friends. They normally live up in the corner of the shower. But today when I went to take a shower, my spider friend had climbed down the wall and was on the little hook that my shower sponge was on. And I thought, oh boy, that's not ideal because I'm going to need to use that. But I didn't stress about it. I thought, well, I have a little bit of time before I'm ready to do that task. Because let's face it, who doesn't follow their regular routine in the shower, doing the same tasks in the same series every day? So I knew I had a little bit of time before I was going to need to use my shower sponge. So I washed my face, and I was just calm and kind of non-resistant about this spider being on something without even thinking about how I was going to get it off. Carefully, because I don't want to hurt it. It's my friend. So I get done washing my face, and now I'm ready to use my sponge. So I look, and my friend has already moved off of it. And he's on his way, or her way, climbing back up into the corner of the shower. And I know that this is not a coincidence. This is me communicating with this spider, and we have a mutual respect for each other. And this comes out of my desire to not be afraid of spiders anymore. And it's been years in the making. You guys, this isn't something that happened overnight. I made a conscious decision to stop being afraid of insects. And it has been a gradual progression, which has gotten me to the point where I actually love my spider friends. And I appreciate my spider. Like in the shower, I look at it frequently and I appreciate it, and we just enjoy each other's company. I know it's weird. Like, I do. I know that most people don't like spiders and don't like bugs, and people that do are kind of strange. But I guess I'm kind of strange. What can I say? I have even progressed to the point where I can put down a piece of paper on the floor if there's a spider, and I can mentally kind of coax it to just walk onto the paper, and then I'm able to take it outside. I've even taken that a step further on occasion and really fought my fear, because I still have some residual fear there. It's not completely gone, but it's gotten a lot better. And I will even let spiders crawl onto my hand, and I take them outside. Now that started once my kids started interacting outside with nature. And I had decided that I did not want to pass on an irrational fear of insects to my kids. I have boys, which probably makes it a little bit easier of a transition because a lot of boys are into bugs anyway. But I really wanted to promote a lack of fear for bugs. Now, let me just interject here, because this is all well and good, but you have to understand where I live. And I live in Washington State. We have very few insects that are harmful to us. So this is something that I can promote and feel good about promoting with my kids. It's not something I could do if we lived in, say, Australia, where there's a lot of things that could kill you if you became friends with them. With that said, I still know that it's all about energy and vibration. And just like Daniel with the lions, even if we lived in Australia, I could probably teach myself to be friends with venomous insects. Though that's even hard for me to say right now, because I do have some residual fear. And I don't want to get bitten and I don't want to get stung. But I'm learning that when you don't resist, when you don't put up the wall, the insects you're interacting with will match your vibration. And that's why a lot of people do get bit and they do get stung. My husband is one of them. John does not get along well with bees. And I would say he gets stung at least once a year, but oftentimes more. I've never known anybody that gets stung so much. I've only been stung by bees twice in my whole life, and both times I was the one offending the bee. One time I went to pick a flower and I squished the bee and it stung me. And the second time I stepped on the bee and it stung me. So you can't really blame the bee in those two situations. But for John, he can be standing there minding his own business. He's not even bothering the bee. And it will fly out of nowhere, land on his neck, and sting him. I was talking with our oldest son about it, and I said, you see, Daddy does not have a good relationship with bees. He has a vibration that he's offering, which the bees are receptive to and react to in an aggressive way. I personally respond to bees differently. I give them their space. I try to offer it's okay, just go along your own way kind of vibration, because I don't want to get stung either, but I know that what I offer is important in that relationship. You're having a relationship with insects anytime you're interacting with them. And my older son has done really good with this. And he will often pick up bugs with his hand. He will let them crawl on him. And he doesn't have a fear. Until recently, he has started to develop more of a fear. And I know that that is associated with the influence of other people. Because while he was very little, being at home was all of his influence. Or, even if we were interacting with people outside of home, I was there. So if something happened, I could address it and keep him from developing a fear of insects. Well, other people have started to interject their own fears onto him. And we still talk about it, and I still promote him to not have a fear response. And he's dealing with it, and he's working his way through it, and that's, kind of his journey. But I'm thinking that when he's older, when he's around my age, he probably will have even less fear than I do at my age right now, because that's something that I have been modeling with him from a very early age. Kids are susceptible to vibration and what we teach them, and they learn to have fear of things. We are teaching that. I mentioned to you my little sister. She, when she was young, I don't know how old she was. I want to say she was around 6. She was outside. She was always kind of an outdoor kid. She really liked playing outside. And one day she was outside and she was playing with a stick, and she went and she was kind of poking at a bug. I think it was a beetle in the kiddie pool. The beetle was in the kiddie pool. So she's poking at it, and then something else distracted her and got her attention, and she was looking away and didn't realize that the stick she had been poking it with was a lifeline, and the beetle had grabbed onto it and climbed all the way up the stick and onto her hand. And when she looked down and saw the beetle, she screamed and she was freaking out because, it was on her. It was fine while it was in the pool. And it was something to kind of play with. But once it was on her body, now it was full-on fear response. And I could relate to that because I am really pushing myself mentally when I allow an insect to be on my body, or even allowing the time needed for it to remove itself from my body, like with that spider that was in my hair. That really takes some mental effort on my part. And I understand that. A lot of us have that. A fear of insects is something that has been passed on for a long, long time. The other thing that I wanted to mention was when I was researching phobias, one of the things that it was saying was, if you have any phobia, the chance of you developing an additional phobia is much higher. Well, I just want to speak to that from law of attraction, because that makes sense to me. If you are focused on a fear of spiders, you are experiencing that emotion anytime you see a spider or think about a spider or witness anything that makes you associate with spiders. Now you're in that feeling. And now if you turn your focus to something else, that feeling is still there. So it makes sense to me that you could develop a fear of another object or stimulus just by changing your focus. A lot of times with entomophobia, people develop what is called agoraphobia, and that's a fear of leaving the house. You don't want to leave where you live, you feel safe in your home, and you experience full-on anxiety, fear, panic attacks when you leave your house, your apartment, wherever it is you live. The reason that people with entomophobia don't want to leave their house is because they don't want to go out into nature and interact with insects. So it makes sense. They're really starting out avoiding the insects. And now the fear has developed into a fear of leaving altogether. Doesn't that just make sense to you when you think about it? That's how the emotion you're experiencing is focused on a different thing and now develops into its own issue. And that's how these things grow and they build momentum. They become bigger problems in your life. But the cause is always the same. The cause is always misalignment, disconnection from source energy. And the treatment mainstream is stuff like exposure therapy. So that's when a mental health professional will slowly expose you to the stimulus you're afraid of. It could be like pictures of bugs, watching a video of bugs, going to a bug museum maybe, and then you kind of build on it up to the point where you can look at a bug on a table next to you and not be afraid. That's the idea behind exposure therapy. It's just gradually increasing your exposure to the stimulus to the point where you can calm yourself in the presence of the stimulus and then get used to decreasing the fear. Cognitive behavioral therapy is another popular treatment for phobias, and that is basically how you think about the stimulus. I think that one is really beneficial. Hypnotherapy is also in there. I think that can be beneficial too. But really, phobias can be treated at home by you, by first understanding what's really causing them, and then working to connect with your source. Meditation solves all problems. All of them. If you can meditate on a regular basis, that is just you decreasing resistance, which is associated with any fear that you have, and it will make everything better in time. In addition to that, being aware that you have a belief that's not serving you will allow you the opportunity to start changing that. If you are at the point of having a phobia about something, there's a lot of momentum going there. This is something that has been practiced for a long time. So you have to just go easy with yourself. Be graceful. Give yourself grace. And allow yourself to have the time to turn it around. It's not going to happen right away. This is something that comes with practice. But loving yourself and knowing that you can turn this around. You do not have to live in fear of anything. Nothing. Finding your alignment will fix it all. When you push against anything, you're contributing to the problem. So give yourself a break. Even if you do want to do this, say you want to change your fear response. You want to change your belief about the thing that you are fearful of. You want to stop labeling yourself with a phobia, or any diagnosis for that matter. Just allow it to be an easier thing. Don't be hard on yourself, because the moment that you are hard on yourself, you're offering more resistance. Just know that it is getting better already, because you're open to it getting better. That is the biggest step you could take, is just being open to it improving. And you know what? It is. And it's starting right this second.
That concludes this episode, but if you don't want to wait for the next episode to come out, I have more for you at drwilliamspodcast.com. You can learn more about me and my journey to podcasting, find all the ways to connect with me on social media, and there's a button to subscribe so you're the first to know what's new and upcoming. You also can shoot me an email at hello@drwilliamspodcast.com. You are so special to me, and your support does not go unnoticed. I want to support you too. This podcast is my outlet for growth, because when you teach something, you hold yourself accountable and apply the information in life. But the inspiration for these episodes comes in a variety of ways, and one of those is through you. I want you to feel like this is your show too. So send me a message and let me know which episode is your favorite and why. And tell me if there's a topic you'd want to hear me talk about. Your feedback applies to so many people, and your suggestion could change someone's life for the better. The best way to do this is by subscribing to the show and leaving a review through your favorite podcast platform. I really listen to you guys, and this dialogue feeds my soul. You say that you're a fan of me, but truth be told, I am a fan of yours. Everything is working out for each of us, and we're all in this together.